Hey everyone, still behind the camera, still got my Astrid scar, so don't worry about seeing that, it's going to be here for a while. But yes, I'm finally doing it. I'm jumping on the Cosmos bandwagon because it's just so timely for me to be covering this now, right? But I don't care because I really like this figure. And also, special shout out to Diana, my wife Diana. She is amazing. Just in like a general sense, she's amazing. But in this particular context, she is amazing because, for those of you who may not know, we live in New York. Specifically in around Manhattan in the Five Boroughs area. And there are no Walmarts here. The closest one is a 2-hour train ride to New Jersey. So yeah, we're not going to spend that time and money going to New Jersey in the hopes of maybe finding this. And, this is a toy. As much as I love Cosmos and Transformers in general, it's a toy. I'm not going to spend that amount of time and money going into a mall in New Jersey in the vague hopes that they might have this short-packed figure that I really want. So it was basically like, well, I guess I just have to wait and hope that one comes up on eBay for a reasonable price, or that Hasbro Pulse gets them back in stock, because don't get me started on that debacle. I'm sure we all know what happened there. But yeah, we have no Walmarts, so Walmart exclusives are basically, we're SOL. But the reason Diana's amazing is because, on a whim, she decided she was going to try and find this guy for me, and she actually found him on eBay for what she said is a very good price comparatively. It was more than, the in-store price, but again, we can't go to Walmart and get one of these. I have no idea how much she actually paid for it, but it's definitely less than the $75 to $125 that this thing was selling for at the time. So, thank you, Diana. I've said it before, but I will say it again. Thank you very much. I now have Velocitron Speedia 500 Cosmos, and I definitely don't think this would have been worth all of the horrible pain in the butt nonsense that it would take to track one of these down when you don't have a Walmart in your area. Thank you very much, Hasbro. But getting him the way I did, totally worth it, especially considering I didn't actually pay for him at all. But yeah, as you probably already know, because I feel like nobody's watching this without having seen a different video on Cosmos at this point, so no surprises here, but this figure is fantastic. He's a very good Cosmos. Now, before getting into too much of it, I do want to caution people, if you get this figure for yourself, you will notice there is a problem when rotating this panel around if you try to do it here. Like, it just won't go, and it's scary to try and force it. What's going on here is not the head bumping into the wall here. That's actually fine. The problem is this piece here. This slides in. You can kind of see that cylinder in the back there that it slides into. Not sure if I can find a good angle to show you all what I'm talking about, but basically this pulls out. And when this is pushed in all the way, the bit that slides through that cylinder sticks into this cavity more. And so what's actually happening is the lip of this rotating disc is knocking into that piece that's sticking through that little cylinder. And that is why this is catching. So if you get this figure, don't try and flip this around from this configuration. Don't try and force it, because you could damage your toy, and that is just not moving. What you actually want to do is you want to disconnect all this stuff and pull this out first. And when you pull this out, this will rotate around freely. And we'll see that more when we get into the transformation, but just as a precaution, letting you all know, that's why this won't rotate around in UFO mode. Speaking of UFO mode, this looks so good. It is very, it's like modernized classic Cosmos. He looks really silly and awkward, but in that incredibly cool and endearing way. So this works. This works incredibly well. I also like the two-tone green that they've got going on here, which is fairly typical of the design, but it does look really good here. Also some really nice molding all the way around. And that is very cool too. You get a little bit of yellow back here to kind of homage the hinges from the G1 toy, and that is painted. That's not like an actual bit of plastic or anything like that. Unfortunately, you also get these slight gaps up here, which I think it's fine. I'm pointing it out just to say that it's there, but it doesn't bother me at all. It's just that is there. And also these yellow hinges on the side here, that's a little bit obvious, but again, not a problem at all, just something I noticed. But I do like how they did this really nice design on the front, kind of evoking the G1 sticker design. And it just breaks up the green and yellow a little bit, and also the silver stripes going down the center, of course. And then this bit up here with the little red button on top meant to evoke his robot mode head, which you can see in there. And this is really clever. I like how they went with a rotating panel rather than a yank it straight up mechanism. Because a lot of Cosmoses do that, and I get it, but at the same time, it doesn't feel great to do all the time. So this is good. And underneath, he is I guess, obviously folded up robot, but at the same time not, because he doesn't really hide a lot in his alt mode. Most of the hidden robot stuff is like the head and the fists and the thighs. But pretty much everything you see here, with the exception of this panel on the back, is gonna be incorporated into the robot mode, so that's cool. And I don't know what else to say. This is just a really neat figure that I really wish Hasbro wasn't so ridiculous with when it came to distribution. So here's how Legacy Velocitron Cosmos stacks up with more average mainline sizes. And yeah, as a deluxe, he is a weird shape, but even as a weird shape, he's smaller than kind of a typical deluxe. Which I think is fine, you know, it's Cosmos. Cosmos is weird, doesn't really bother me, but it is something to be aware of. Now, I don't own too many Cosmos figures. Actually, you are looking at all of the Cosmos figures that I own, but here we've got him with, this is the Transformers Adventures version, so this is Atoms, but this is how the modern deluxe Cosmos stacks up with his Legends equivalent, and the surface area is noticeably larger, and the overall shape, you know, the overall alt mode is also noticeably larger. I do think it's cool how different, there we go, that makes it a little easier to see them. I do think it's cool how different the overall aesthetic is between the two of them. And again, this is a on the small side deluxe, because that's just kind of how it goes, but again, it doesn't really bother me, and I think it works for Cosmos, because Cosmos isn't huge, you know? I mean, he is huge, because he's a big spaceship that can ferry people around, but he's not actually huge in terms of, like, the toy, because he's a mini-box, historically. And real quick before we go on to transformation, I forgot to talk about his accessories. So he comes with a little flag thing and a gun, and they're both very simple, and yeah, I'm not super enthusiastic about all of this, but hey, it is what it is. And you can peg them together, and then this can peg onto the side if you want to have it like shooting forward, or you can do what I do to just hide it, which is peg it onto the back, and that just kind of gets it out of the way. But we'll see this more when we get to robot mode. But first, we have to get to robot mode. So to start, we are going to unpeg these bits, which will become the arms, from the sides. They tab in right in there. So unpeg those and just swing them down, because they are able to rotate out better when they're down like this. When they're like this, things kind of get in the way. So I'm just going to rotate those down for now. Next, we can pull this section out, and this, you don't want to pull from this thing, because this is just loosely pegged in, and that will pop off if you try and yank it there. But you pull out, you can get these bits around what will become the legs, and tug this out. You can see how this is sliding out. So this is the bit that we want to get out of that torso section. And we'll pull that out a little bit more, but first I'm going to take care of the legs. So lift these bits up, because they peg into the sides of the legs, and then bring the legs down, and they hinge forward on this piece here, which settles back like that. So you want to bring all this forward, and this will swing forward and clip in here. So there is that, and then these can come back down. Now we can finish pulling this out, and also it's just a better grip from grabbing down here, so we can grab that and pull that out the rest of the way, and that will get all this out of the way. And with this pulled out of the way, now we can rotate this around freely, and you see it doesn't get caught at all. You can kind of see that little cylinder that I was talking about there on the inside. That is what this was sticking through and getting in the way of, so that's how that was causing problems. So now I want to rotate this around 180 degrees. This bit will flip in, and these will tab into these little slots here. And then this swings up, and this slot will go over that tab on the back. There's a little bit of flexing here, but it settles in just fine. So that settles in like that. And now these bits, there are these yellow bits here that hinge forward, and they will clip over these tabs that are poking out of the sides. So like that, and like that. And then can rotate out fists. Rotate out the fists. Those arms up out of the way, and yeah, the fact that the arms can do this is, I'll talk about that later. Now, this is my favorite part of the transformation, actually. I mean, a lot of it's really cool, but I like this, how you can unpeg the feet. You want to tilt this in because otherwise it'll crash in here. But tilt that in, swing it up, and that will give him his feet. And now this is the part that I really like, how you've got these chunky bits sticking off to the side that make the feet look a little bit weird. And also, you've got this going on, which isn't great. So what you do is this piece swings around, and as it swings around, it'll clip over this tab sticking off the back of the foot or heel or whatever you want to call it. And that solidifies this so it can't rock back anymore. And it slims up the foot, and it gives him a heel. And I love that. That is a brilliant engineering move because it solves 3 problems with 1 joint. That's so clever. I love it. Okay, so the arms back down, and as you can see, we are almost done. Lastly, we just want to flip this section around. So push down there, flip this around, and with this pushed in, it doesn't, you can see it doesn't stick through that part, so you don't have to worry about it getting caught. So you can just flip this around and clip that in, and there we have Legacy Velocitron Speedia 500 Cosmos in his robot mode, and he is really, really awkward, and I love that. It's, I want to say perfect, at least close to perfect. And right off the bat, especially in this lighting, it is pretty obvious that you've got the painted yellow on the arms and the face that does not match the yellow plastic for the waist and legs. It's not as bad in hand. For some reason, the difference in coloration between these 2 elements is much more apparent on camera, but in hand it's okay. Beyond that, though, it does look the part of Cosmos. I particularly like that they leaned into the kind of awkward proportions for this one, as opposed to making him looking all like slim and cool like they did with the more recent Legends version. Not complaining, I love that Cosmos, but I really like how they did something other than, you know, semi-boxy, heroic style proportions robot for Cosmos, because it's Cosmos. I feel like he doesn't really need that. And he cleans up pretty well. Really, the only kibble he has is this bit folded up on his back, and considering how he transforms and how this entire assembly rotates around because the arms aren't actually attached to the torso, I think that's really cool. I really am fine with this bit hanging off the back here. And this is a very, very neat Cosmos skin. I love what they did with the feet. That is so cool. Now, the arms were a problem on mine. When I first got mine, this arm was a little loose, and this arm was impossible. Like, he could not hold anything up. Not even hold anything up. He couldn't hold his own arm up. Even if I didn't have his accessory in his hand, this arm would just... So I used a lot of floor polish on this shoulder joint and a little bit on this one, and I might need to go in and do this one again because that, I mean, it's holding, it's fine, but... it feels a little bit loose. This one, though, is definitely better. And I think And yeah, I used so much floor polish to get this joint working properly because it was so loose. From what I understand, that's a common problem with this figure, but it's just kind of sucked to deal with. Also, may have had something to do with the pin firing, because you can see there's some stress right around that hole that the pin comes through. And I've seen some people have gotten theirs where that spot was cracked right out of the box. Thankfully mine is not cracked, and I don't have the same kind of stress on this shoulder. But yeah, that's something to be aware of, but I don't really know how easy it is to look out for because he comes packaged in vehicle mode. You might be able to angle the box to check to see if that spot is cracked or stressed. I don't know for sure, but just something to be aware of. But yeah, this is a great looking Cosmos. The color separation is kind of perfect with the green on the feet, green around the edges of the arms, green in the torso, but then the yellow for the legs and hip section, and the yellow for the forearms, and of course the head, which we'll look at in a minute. So the only new stuff that we get in this mode is what's revealed here with the legs and hips, and I guess the crotch, and the fists. And I do think it's clever how they integrated he has the little booster gun things on his fists, but the ones from the vehicle mode are actually right here on the backs of his shoulders. But when you're looking at him from here, you don't notice them, so it kind of cheats the idea that these move from here down to here somehow. Now, there is that Cosmos head. I love this. It is, like, people joke about Megatron having a bucket head, but Cosmos's head is, like, it's a bucket. It's just a bucket turned upside down. Like, look at that. That is just a bucket that is painted red sitting on top of a UFO robot body. And I love it, and it's so Cosmos. It's so awkward. He's got that kind of telltale three-piece mouth plate, yellow face, red head, that weird widow's peak in the helmet at the top there, and the nice shiny blue eyes. It's great. It's awkward and kind of silly, but also I love it because it's just endearing and kind of cute. And now, as we saw with Articulation, he gets a ball joint, so he's got a lot of range with the tilt, and the up and down is pretty darn decent. And if you really wanted to, you could have him look down further using this, but probably not the best choice. And of course it can rotate, as we saw. And they also have, it's like a little bit of a divot right around here, which allows that head to move more than if it was just coming straight up. Like this piece that the head is sitting on, instead of continuing along to make like a dome shape, it goes up and then kind of curves back down and in to give it that range. So that's really, really good thinking on Hasbro's part. Now the arms, as we saw, they can go in and out to varying degrees of effectiveness depending on your copy of the toy. They can swing not 360 degrees, they actually stop at a certain point if you've got the arm out at all. Just because of what's going on here, it'll clash in there. So if you push the arm in all the way, you can get the 360 degrees of motion. But you also get a pretty decent range with the arm extended, so it doesn't really matter, I don't think. You get a bicep swivel and a 90-degree elbow, which I think is perfectly adequate. And then no rotation at the fists, but they can swing in. And I've seen people complain about the gaps in the forearms, and like, yeah, those are some pretty egregious gaps, but like the fists go in there. So I'm kind of like, I don't know, on a deluxe, I don't really think there's much that could have been done there, because again, it's a deluxe. And yeah, it's a gap, but we're too spoiled if that's what we're complaining about on one of the most perfect Cosmos toys that we've gotten in forever. Anyway, surprisingly angry rant out of the way. I was surprised to find out that this Cosmos does have a waist swivel. It's just a dedicated joint specifically for waist swivelage. It's not used in the transformation. It's just, you rotate it around and you're good to go. This does kind of clash with this a little bit, but it's not that big a deal, and you get pretty much all the way around if you really want to. The hip skirts get out of the way, and these are a little bit of a disappointment for me. I know they're there to kind of shore things up for the transformation, but they kind of stick out really far and feel a little bit superfluous, at least in robot mode. But you can fold them way up and out of the way if you need to, so that you can move the legs forward to 90, back a little past 90, out to 90, and then you get thigh rotation. The knees can bend 90. I feel like they probably could have done a little bit more there if they had shaped this a little bit differently, but it's probably for structural stability reasons that they didn't. But yeah, 90 degrees on the knee. And then the feet do not get any forward and backward motion with this in place. You can move it if you want to allow the foot to go back, but then it kind of has to engage with the ankle tilt in order for it to move. And I just feel like that's not really worth it. But you can do that if you want, but you do get that ankle tilt, which is not super great, but that is a pretty decent amount. So yeah, this guy is very smartly designed and very, very cleverly posable. Now bringing back his accessory, again, his gun, so you can plug it into his hand and he can do the obvious thing, or you can plug the flag piece into the gun and you can hold it like this, so it's like waving a white flag of surrender or race almost done, or rotate it around like that, or like that. It's whatever for the checkered flag. So yeah, you can give Cosmos a flag, and it's cute. I'm not super enthused about it, but it's cute. And if you want, you can also just plug it on his back so you don't have to look at it. And that kind of gets it out of your way. Or you could plug it onto his arms or his calves if you want. For the most part, I just keep it in his fist as the flag because it's fine. It's cute. But I personally kind of am fine with him not having an accessory, so I might just throw this in my storage box when I'm done with this video, because I don't think he really needs it. I feel like Cosmos gets by just on goofy coolness factor alone. And pull this out a little bit more. Here we've got him with some more mainline comparisons, and yeah, as I said, he's kind of small for a deluxe, which we all, I think, know at this point. And it's Cosmos, he's a mini-bot, so it doesn't really bother me, but it is that. He's a little bit tiny, so if that bothers you, then there you go. I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do about it. I do not work for Hasbro. Anyway, bring this back in, because there is how Legacy Cosmos stacks up with Generations / Titans Return / Transformers Adventure Cosmos. I do like how this is very clearly the same guy, because you've got a lot of vaguely similar design elements, like the yellow for the waist and thigh section, the red bucket helmet with the yellow face, the yellow in the arms, and that green, and the kind of vaguely but also obvious UFO nature of the of the robot bits that are also alt mode bits. But I think it's cool that we've got two completely different aesthetics for Cosmos. I mean, they're alien robots that can change shape at will, so maybe he just decided he wanted to look like this, and that's what he looks like now. I don't know. That is gonna do it for Transformers Legacy Velocitron Speedia 500 Cosmos. So many words. And yeah, I love this figure. It's great, as virtually everybody else does. It's just a lot of fun. It's great. The transformation is really clever and smart and does some really fun and interesting and unexpected things. And the only thing that I really hate about this figure is that Walmart exclusivity. Well, the Walmart exclusivity coupled with the way that both Walmart and Hasbro utterly botched the release and distribution of this guy. I just hope that everybody who wants this Cosmos can get a hold of him eventually, because it is a very worthwhile Cosmos to get. I just want everyone who wants him to be able to get him, because you shouldn't have to jump through this many hoops to get a mainline release figure when it's supposed to be in stores right now. But all that aside, this is a fun figure, so yeah, that is about all I've got to say about Cosmos. So what do you all think of this guy? Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. And remember, despite my ranting, it is just toys, so let's all take it easy. Seriously, people, live with it. It's not going to hurt you.